Hey everyone, this is my second video in which I'm documenting the next user interface which I created. This time I selected YouTube Music as my inspiration and I went on to Mobin. I saw some flows and I felt this was a reference image which in which I had to do a lot of modular changes and a lot of properties could be applied. So I felt this could be a good practice and that is why I decided to select the screen. Now, how I approached this in making this was very interesting as I also learned another component property which was Boolean property, and using that I was able to make the design library or the component library very small, like a lot more compact than it could have it would have been normally. So the last time what I did was I created a lot of different sections, like you can see for each one I had to constantly create multiple variations. This time what I did was all these could be implemented using one single panel, as you can see, and I used the Boolean property on the timer as well as view. So what I have done is basically you can see the selected music needs to show the timer, and the ones that are not selected or not playing that are in the list need to show the number of views. So I have added number of views and I can just toggle between them, like you can see even in this one I can just toggle them on and off and set their values directly from here. So this is something which I've implemented, that every single thing should be editable through the property window and I don't have to manually do everything, right? Because there is one plugin which can help me select all these things and enter. So it's called content reel. So what I do is basically, in order to fill information in between these, I can just basically go to text and then I can search for songs, and it can access all the all the layers, or not layers, all the component properties which I've created and apply different values to those automatically through this program. As you can see, I can select all these, and if I select song, apply my this plugin to specifically that component property, and you can see all the songs got changed. So this is something which is much easier to do now and is much more efficient when I've created this through one single component. Now, one thing which I faced difficulty at was when I was creating this, a new learning to me was that if I make a component, I cannot use its instance in another component and then create add a property to it. So basically what I did in the beginning was I took a timer. I basically created this timer in a way that it would mimic how database fetch the data. So if let's talk this is a much better example. Let us suppose this is the number of views. So the million views is gonna stay static, and the number of views is gonna change. Like if it's 80 or 100 million views or 200 million views. Now this is a very ideal case. There could be multiple cases, but I've taken this one. So I can specifically add these in an auto layout, and I can now edit this while this whole thing doesn't get affected, right? In order to achieve this effect, I first went and created a component in a way that it would mimic the databases, like how data is fetched from the backend, but it didn't work because I was not able to add the property here. So what I had to do was detach the instance, and I had to apply all the component properties directly to this particular component. So which eliminated the need for this, and it made this whole component library even shorter, even more compact. One problem which I incurred was when I was making this, adding these divider lines and making them responsive was something which was difficult. So as you can see, if I select the frame and expand them or shorten it, the lines are getting filled throughout the frame with an equidistance from the right and left, which is the padding. However, I had to implement it using a separate component, and this was something which was creating a problem when I was trying to add it to particular elements. Like I was trying to implement that into the bottom of each of these elements, which was creating a problem. When I was declaring styles for this user interface, there was a problem which I encountered, which was organizing all these styles. So I deductively thought as to how I can organize these, and I tried to name them as I name frames and organize them in the folders. Similarly, I thought, like I deduced, that if Figma works like that for frames and all, it should also work for styles. So I tried to organize and name these. If I go into this, you can see that this is secondary. But if I just a second, yeah. If I go into this, you can see that it's YT Music slash song title, which helped me organize this into a single YT Music folder, which was something which I learned deductively and I kind of tried to figure it out on my own. The other things like auto layout, using instance swap properties, and factors like creating these in auto layout constraint, like this whole menu is in itself is auto layout, and this whole page in itself is also auto layout. So these were some things which I took references from my previous design, and I followed the same approach. However, something which you can notice here is while prototyping, if I add this and add this, you can see that these things are scrollable, these things as well, and ideally there should be more data, but as there was a little bit of a time constraint, I was able to achieve this much. So I'm trying to make component libraries even more compact, trying to recognize more and more patterns. I'm trying to play with more and more properties. Like in this section as well, if you can see, we can focus at this particular element as well. Like in this, I can go into specific sections, and while prototyping, I can just switch it on. And for this one, I can close it off. And you can see how easily I can switch between the selected states. So for this, I didn't even need to create variants, and I could this would like just be editable directly to the properties window. This is something which I tried differently from the previous time. In the previous UI, I was trying to create variants for all buttons and prototyping, but in this one, I just try to do it through component properties. This is what I did for this UI. I am yet to completely prototype it. What I've decided is I can take the further screens as a part of this flow only and make a complete flow like all the screens in the upcoming days as I complete more and more days of the challenges, and prototype it together to create one particular flow. And that would be much more productive, I guess, and also help me make my process of creating this UI much more faster and efficient. Thank you.